Prison for a week.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the P&Z Board LPA hearing for Thursday, March 13, 2025. Can we get a roll call, please?
There we go. Chairperson Kakwan Ma.
Here.
Vice Chair Michael Ferranti.
Here.
Board Member Rachel Hood.
Here.
Board Member David Menken.
Here.
Board Member Louis Halal.
Here.
Assistant City Attorney Kristen Ike.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Can we please stand for a moment of silence and pledge of allegiance? Please face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any agenda changes for this evening?
No.
All right, let's see. We will open it up for the first public input. Anybody wishing to speak on any topic that is not on the regular agenda is welcome to do so at this time. Seeing and hearing none, we will close the public input and move on to the consent agenda for the approval of the meeting minutes from January 2nd, 2025. Any discussion? No. Any motion to approve, please?
I move we approve the minutes as written from the Thursday, January 2nd meeting of Planning and Zoning.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Okay. Thank you. Board Member Halal.
Aye.
Board Member Hood.
Aye.
Board Member Menken.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ferranti.
Aye.
And Chair Ma.
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving to the public hearings agenda, item number 400 for the Human Bean Coffee Shop.
Good evening. Tara Lynn Roll, Director of Community Development. We have before you this evening the Human Being Coffee Shop. They have submitted applications for site plan approval. And with that, there's a aesthetic review application, a waiver application, and a development agreement application. Just a little bit of background, the subject project is located at 260 East State Road 434. And we have a series of events leading up until this evening, beginning last spring with the pre-application meeting in March, plan submitted in July. A community workshop was held in January. And additionally, aesthetic review waiver and development application were submitted in February, and public notices sent in March. The applicant's representative is Mr. Kevin Abear, and both the business owner and applicant are here this evening. So as mentioned, the proposed project is going to be located at 260 East State Road 434 in the Venetian Square Shopping Center. And the site itself will be on 0.39 acres within the shopping center parking lot. It is currently zoned C1, neighborhood commercial, and the project has received all of its Florida Department of Environmental Protection clearances for water and sewer and stormwater. So we'll start with the aesthetic review. Or before I go, I have before you the updated version of the approved plans. The plans that were in your packet were slightly different, was an earlier iteration. So I have printed out in front of you the approved plans for the project, and they will be submitted to the clerk's office for the record and forwarded to the City Commission, should you choose to recommend approval. So we have here just a few elevations. This is the front and rear. and we also have the left and right. You have a packet with those elevations. This is the original color. However, staff is recommending that with the recent renovations of Venetian Square, having that background color of a light, white or gray coloration for the applicant to adjust the base color of the shop. They are in communications with the Venetian Square landlord who will be providing those paint colors, and they will be updated to match and presented to the City Commission. So I just wanted you to see this, but the actual coloring will be that is a gray or white similar to the existing shopping center facade. In your packet, the other application was for a waiver from the 434 streetscape. That should be in the waiver application packet. So the applicant is requesting a waiver from the streetscape requirements to, one, use the existing 5-foot sidewalk that's there now versus the 6-foot sidewalk. Also, currently, there is some streetscaping and planting of trees and shrubbery already, and so they're proposing to add an additional 3 trees to the trees that are currently there, and then also to add some shrubbery on the northern side of those trees that is not currently there. The plans, the landscaping plans reflect those shrubs being planted from the eastern extent of the curb cut to just past the human beings, but the staff were recommending to have the shrubbery go to the extent of the existing streetscape, not just in front of the coffee shop. And in essence, the primary request is because of FDOT requirements with the tree plantings in their right-of-way, and also not having to pull up the existing landscaping to put in a new streetscape. So they will be planting additional enhancements to the existing landscaping. So with that, staff is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Board approve the application for the human being with the following conditions: for a development agreement to be executed, to have substantial conformance to the exhibits. The parking spaces shall be designed as 10 by 20 feet. And as mentioned, that the color palette be revised to match that of the existing Venetian Square, and have those updated and submitted for City Commission approval, should there be a recommendation for approval. And to have the row of shrubs proposed to be planted for the streetscape to extend to the western property line. And with that, if you have any questions for staff, I'll be happy to answer. We also have the applicant and business owner here as well.
All right. Thank you. Does the applicant have any additional presentation to add?
Only if any questions.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Let's see. We'll open it up to discussion.
Is this a franchise or is it an independent coffee shop? Can you tell us more about the coffee shop? Yes.
Yeah. Please state your name and address, please.
I'm Jan White, East 260 East SR 434. So yeah, it's a franchise out of Oregon. There's about 250, 60 already in production all over the country. They started in 1998. This will be the second in Florida, the first in Central Florida. So, I mean, it's a family-owned franchise company. It's not corporate-backed or anything like that, so.
Are customers able to purchase coffee just inside, or is there a window outside?
There is a walk-up window as well, but it's primarily drive-through. But there'll be a walk-up window, maybe some little seating out front.
Michael, do you have anything?
No, it looks very similar to the other one we
Mhm.
approved, square feet and everything, so, drive up, so I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions yet, but perhaps some discussion with the board here to maybe formulate a question. So, just based on personal experience, I think the report identifies 3 entrances, one on Sherry Ave. There's another one that looks to be just on the west side of the Advanced Auto Parts. And the third is an entrance that I believe is part of the property that's owned by the pizza establishment that's there. Yeah. Oh, okay. Good. The entrance there is used by both travel lanes, east and west on 434. And I think just by virtue of the Venetian Square status as it is in terms of it being built out and, you know, being a regular place that people frequent, it's really nice to see that it is becoming more used for commercial purposes. But the transition from that drive to this parking lot is a little bit of a Wild West show in that folks will turn in on here and just jet across the parking lot. And it's, I don't know if there's a safety issue there or if the plan that you guys have has, you know, incorporated anything to address that particular traffic flow that might come in from that entrance and move back eastward to get to the coffee shop if people are backing up trying to get in. I don't think it'd be an issue here where, you know, sometimes I've seen these Starbucks, well, the Starbucks over there in 434 or Tuscaloosa, yeah, and that backs up pretty significantly. So I would anticipate that folks will go around that backup and then come into this entrance. So I don't know if the board, who might have some better experience or knowledge in that situation, can help address that question.
This is just anecdotal, but I live very close to the one coffee shop that recently opened, and I've been keeping an eye on every morning whenever I go to and from, you know, work and back home. I do see their queues, and they're kind of set up in the same way where they're on the front part of a parking lot and with mainly drive-through, and I have not seen any issues. You know, I haven't necessarily been there on like on a weekday right at, you know, between 7 and 8. I'm usually there before that, but I haven't seen any queuing issues.
Did the applicant want to address anything in regards to that entry?
I can. So Kevin Aber, MEI Partners, civil engineer, 1035 South Cimarron Boulevard, Suite 1029, Winter Park, 32792. I'm not really sure what you were talking about with the different drives. I have an overall map. Perhaps you could put it up. The community or the commercial development that I see has one northerly on Sherry right towards the frontage of the main facade. And then the auto parts store has one kind of midpoint. You've got the main one that we're basically coming in at that exists today. And all these exist today.
Right.
We're not proposing anything new. And then there's one farther to the west at the common property line between this main complex and the neighbor to the west.
That's the one I'm referring to.
That's the one way to the west?
Yeah.
Do you have people coming in, cutting and striking themselves through there? Yeah. So I do know, I mean, I'm not here to speak for the overall landowner, right? I do know, and you folks I'm sure are aware because you would have, I assume, approved it. You know, they went through, when we first started looking at it, this was all old sea of asphalt, angled parking and whatnot. And about the time we had our pre-app last spring, the plan had been implemented and we had a new updated survey and it went to more of what you're seeing on Island and trying to break this thing up a little bit. So, just out of my own curiosity, so are you seeing Fast and the Furious happen with the new plan that's been laid out by the property, or the old, before some of the island breaks were put in? And just out of curiosity,
The
I'm asking.
the
The new one?
current.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was probably worse even before, right? Because there was no obstructions.
That I couldn't speak to.
Yeah.
But,
I can tell you on this plan, and if, I don't know if there's control of the civil set that was submitted and essentially approved by staff, we're closing one of the mid aisles down with this development. It's something that we had open originally, but through some work with city staff and whatnot, we did close it off. And that takes away one of the bypasses through maybe the front 20-30% of the parking field. If everybody has maybe this in front of them, it's occurring, the closing of the current bypass, or the breakthrough drive aisle is occurring almost at the back end of the auto parts store. There's a line, two parallel lines where a curb is being put in to close that off. One, we don't need it. We could have used it, but it's not necessarily, and it allows us to get a little more green space. So,
no, that's all understood. I thank you. Yeah, so I guess to the board, I think, I mean, it's, what I'm bringing up, it sounds to me like it's just an issue between the developer and the overriding owner of the property. Yeah, and then can't really do anything about the adjacent property or the condition of that drive.
Right. Related to that, I did have one comment with respect to the site plan. There is a pedestrian crossing on that frontage aisle of the development that you have shown on the site plan. I would like to see if you would consider, instead of the longitudinal lines, making it one of the high-intensity crosswalks, which have like
the railroad.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Jan's not going to care. It doesn't bother me. You know, the special emphasis seems
Yeah.
to be more in play if it's maybe along the perimeter or, you know, but I'm impartial to it.
Okay.
Doesn't bother me either way.
It just provides a little bit better visual cue for drivers, especially if they are, you know, kind of zipping across from one of the access points to the other. So,
Now, let me ask you this to maybe not get into the weeds, but just so we're clear on what we're talking about. I'm good with the blocks, like the rungs of the ladder, right?
right.
I don't like the rail. I don't like both the rails and
No,
the.
no,
You're good with
I
that?
don't want both either.
Okay, all right. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you having a single service lane or a double?
It's a single, albeit with a tremendous amount of stacking opportunity and a sufficient bypass lane.
So you can get around if you
Yes, sir.
have to? Okay.
Rachel.
We do a handful of these, and even for some of the corporate bigger guys and whatnot. And this layout here has the opportunity for more stacking and bypass than some of the more common ventures have. So
There were a lot of waivers being requested with respect to the landscaping, and my understanding is that you are not touching the boundaries of the existing landscaping. You're not moving the curb, interior or exterior curb of the landscaping. Is that correct?
correct.
Okay. Are you changing?
Only where we're punching through for the pedestrian connectivity,
Okay,
which doesn't exist today.
understood.
Yep.
To the existing public sidewalk?
Yes, right. When this development went through that parking lot redo, right in almost the midpoint of our project, there's extra space allotted as you get back to the main anchor for pedestrian connectivity to get to the main anchor all the way through. Jan's project here is allowing it to continue on and get to the public right away.
Right. And I think it was back around 2022 when they did those improvements in that parking lot, which, in my opinion, really raised the aesthetic value of that plaza. When they resurfaced it, they added the landscaping, they added the improved pedestrian connectivity and lighting, which makes it safer in, in the darker areas. So,
Sure.
so I'm glad that the property owner made those changes. And what you show here is, I just wanted to make sure it's consistent with what was done. I understand you're going to be punching through for where the pedestrian connection is, and that makes sense. Are there any changes being proposed to the geometrics at the access driveway between you and the Advanced Auto Parts, insofar as it connects to the FDOT right-of-way?
There's not, other than we're proposing better control than what is just kind of worn out today. If you're coming in off of the DOT road and take a right in, you're free flowing, where the other three legs have stop conditions, right? And if I recall correctly, last time I was out there, it was relatively faded and whatnot. So this will certainly give it pause for those that now have to stop and whatnot.
So you didn't need to do any driveway permit or driveway modification?
By not touching it, no. And we've coordinated with DOT, and they haven't come back with anything official.
Okay. Let's see.
Real quick too, and I know, and one, we appreciate everybody's time. I know it's a special day and whatnot, and Lord knows she deserves this and much more. Your concern about the cutting through and whatnot, I can tell you we do a lot of commercial development all throughout the state, and certainly here in Central Florida. It's a problem for our clients that own entire, plazas and town centers and whatnot. And, they've taken steps to try and deter those that are, looking to get on the gas a little bit and turn a wheel and things like that. But again, that's kind of out of our, certainly, limits of the project. But it's not specific to this location, as I'm sure you're aware.
Okay. A couple questions on the site plan itself. The northern part of the property is where the dumpster is proposed to go, is that correct?
Yes.
If I read the site plan correctly, the garbage trucks would be entering on the west side of that? No? Can you kind of,
You can. Can we get to the next page that's more blown up and specific to the C200 in the plans?
oh, okay.
But the gate,
Okay,
yeah,
so
the-
this is different than the one that was, that I had originally?
way different, right?
Okay.
Now, I don't want to change it. I did like the first one better, but we're not changing it. We're locked in.
Okay, so then, what is the orientation of the dumpster? I'm just trying to understand how the garbage truck will access.
So they're going to come in like everybody else from the south.
Okay.
And work themselves northerly, right? Which button? Just the lower one. So everybody's still going to come in. That solid waste truck will come in this way. And again, there's almost two full lanes headed northerly. One which becomes dedicated to the drive-through. One is primarily for the bypass. So that
Understood.
solid waste truck will come in off that bypass lane, get his business, and there's plenty of clear space, as you can see, to back up and keep moving
Okay.
out to the west.
Okay, got it. So they will be accessing it from the south,
From the south.
picking it up, putting it down, and then they'll be using the bypass lane.
Back up a little bit and head left.
Okay. All right. That alleviates the concern I had on the other plan then. What are the operating hours of the coffee shop?
We really haven't established all of that yet, but I'm guessing it'd be between like 5 to 6 and 7 to 8 p.m.
Okay,
That's typically what it is.
okay, thank you. So I will bring up a comment I had with when the other coffee shop came in as well. First question, is there any overhead lighting planned for the coffee shop?
On the building itself, or you mean like photometrics, like site lighting?
Yeah, photometric site lighting, and I'll continue my comment and question. If there is planned outdoor seating, I would be, and depending on the hours of operation, I would want to include a condition that has overhead lighting or acceptable lighting for outdoor seating for safety purposes, as well as aesthetics for related to, pedestrian activity outside of the
Yeah,
business.
I can tell, and I'm assuming the building itself has a few wall packs, right, Rob? It's gonna have some wall pack. Now, this is a tight site, as you can see. It's 690 square foot. There's really not a whole lot of opportunity for seating out front, not that she couldn't place something, but it is primarily a drive-through opportunity for customers and
Okay.
whatnot.
I just thought I heard a comment about there being outdoor seating, that's all.
Yeah, you're not seeing your typical patio with 8 tables or whatever it may be.
I was trying to clarify, because in the analysis, I believe it listed that there would not be outdoor seating, and then it also had a comment about using no spill lighting.
Right, yeah, the wall sconces or the light packs on the building itself do look like they're more like no-spill sconces, so that would only provide very limited lighting, for any outdoor areas.
Yeah. Rob might be able to speak to it, the gentleman here on the end, to put him on the spot.
Yeah, I guess I can revisit with the manufacturer to see if anything can be added also.
Are you looking for more spread? Because usually people aren't, right? But I understand.
Right, if it's open till, 7 or 8, depending on the time of year, it's going to be dark outside. For the safety of any of the customers, and for the aesthetics of the site, I would want to make sure that there is adequate lighting.
Okay.
Well, and I mean, there can or cannot be outdoor seating, but there is a walk window. So if you don't want it there, fine. But there is a window to walk up.
There is a walk-up window, yes.
So you have 3 spaces and a walk-up window, so you have the potential for somebody at night parking and walking up to get a coffee.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So where are we talking that you were thinking with outdoor, just so we had an idea,
I mean,
if there was potential?
If there's
for
space,
the-
I mean, we'll put like a little table and
Small
some chairs
tables and
right
chairs.
outside the front window, but, that doesn't have to be. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Would you be comfortable with a condition added which states that appropriate adequate lighting or overhead lighting be installed if outdoor seating is available for the business?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, anything that improves safety, I'm all for that.
Okay.
I mean, there's certainly some green space that she could add that element to it, so, but as it's programmed right now, it is just that little walk-up window at the front, but
Okay.
there are some good green space opportunities.
What is that bulb that's in between the Advanced Auto Parts and the coffee shop? Is that just concrete?
Oh, no, that's a landscape island.
Okay,
So part of it which exists today, albeit it used to be the old teardrop, if you guys remember that before it was redone. It looked like a perfect little teardrop. That's been reduced significantly with the parking
Yep.
improvements and whatnot. And, but now what you see, this whole line is new, and we're tying into the drive aisle that exists today.
okay,
And then this area here is where we were closing it off. Today, it shoots across, where we at? Today, it's open through here. We're closing that drive off with that curb.
okay. Let's see, and hang on, I just need to double check. C200. Okay. I did have a comment that the site plan that I had reviewed, the parking stall sizes were inconsistent with what was in the conditions, but it looks like they are shown as 10 by 20 now in the
Yeah,
updated pack.
but I want to be clear on something before we get into construction. Could you go back to 200? So these folks right here are back at, I can read it, 10 by 20. That's your 10 by 20.
Okay.
These guys here is 10 by 18, but I've got a 7-foot sidewalk allowing for a 2-foot overhang. Whenever, and I'm always optimistic, and I usually try and push that 2-foot overhang approach that not everybody understands or accepts, or it's not in their code. People are people. And that truck is going to pull up as far as it goes until it stops, either by wheel stop or curb. I'm not a fan of wheel stops. We do a lot of expert witness work. They're tripping hazards, right? So what you've got here is you've got a traditional curb, 7-foot sidewalk, but a imaginary 2-foot overhang. So for instance, right there is the handicap sign with a bollard around the initial 3.5 feet of it. That's actually the kind of the stopper visual, right? But everybody else has that curb that they're gonna hit no matter what, and overhang. So right here, these guys are 18 and not 20, but effectively the same dimension for the parking stall is still provided. But I wanted to bring it up, that way when we get into construction, we're not ripping stuff out. Because what it also does too, this one here is not as big, but if you think of a big commercial opportunity and you implement this approach throughout, it starts saving a lot of pavement costs. Because now we're just doing a thickened edge sidewalk, which is gonna happen anyways. But now we've cut 2 feet times whatever length out of, base, structure, asphalt and things like that. So I try and carry that forward in many places as possible.
Terry Lynn, are we okay with that is that still consistent with the proposed DA? So the DA does state 10 by 20, but if they do the 10 by 18 with an assumed 2-foot overhang, are we still good on that condition where it says parking spaces shall be designed as 10 by 20?
Yeah, and that was to specifically address that section of the site plan. So we would be okay with that.
Okay. I don't want the applicant to get caught up in that if it comes up in the, somebody else is reviewing the DA and says, oh, these aren't 10 by 20.
Yeah, no, that's why I
Yeah,
wanted to bring it up. I mean, it meets the intent,
Yeah.
it serves all the purpose,
Understood.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, I would suggest if the intent is to allow the 18 by 10, that we remove that condition. Because right now, the condition says it must be 10 by 20.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking after your best interest. So I don't want somebody else to interpret it differently and then come back and say, okay, these are showing as, 10 by 18 instead of 10 by 20.
Yeah, I mean, I think however you want to write it, what makes it understandable for all that might have an interest in it, whether it be, the effective parking field, which exists, right, meets the intent, or just be specific to, be specific to just these 3 spaces are the only 18 by 10s, right?
Yeah, 4, right?
Because this ADA, so 18,
got
so it's an
it.
18-foot depth. So the
Yeah.
same thing applies as far as the depth.
Right.
But that 12-foot will always get you above any minimum parking space required, right? From a square footage.
Well, yeah, but the handicap space is not just the width, because you have vans that have backloading. So that's why the 20. They don't have a 2-foot overhang.
Yeah, I would disagree with you. Like I said, we carry that, that ADA stall
It's been okay.
will harmonize with all his buddies next to him.
Well-
We've never had issues, and it's never been, in my 26 years, it's never been a issue of litigation, knock on wood, right, as soon as you mention it. It's never been an issue with it being 18 or 20.
Well, that's why it was 20.
I could
But you're
understand that.
counting the 2-foot overhang.
I can understand that.
Technically, when you roll in a van, you're gonna have 2 feet in the front, and you'll have the back still will have a drop down. Most vans load from the side. That's why the width is important.
And we do have, I can't read it, that is not your typical 5, I don't think. Does that say 5?
Mm-hmm.
8. The diagonal,
Yeah,
that's an 8-foot, not 5.
it's pretty
If that
wide.
helps you some more.
Yeah, you've got a lot extra.
Sure.
Okay.
Kristen, can you suggest how we would word that to accommodate what's shown on the site plan without it getting overly complicated?
So perhaps saying, can you repeat, I'm sorry, the part about, is there bollards, you said?
Only for
For the handicap?
the handicap sign, because
Oh.
that handicap sign, the way the plans read is the outer edge of that bollard is at the 2-foot mark, right?
Yeah,
So it's a 2-foot clear overhang. But in theory, the same applies for even your regular passenger vehicle.
Because
They're
of the
gonna
curb.
roll up, hit that thickened edge curb, which is a 6-foot rise, or 6-inch rise. And then they're overhanging a little bit, right there. So they don't need, the bollard's just there to protect the sign.
All right. So basically saying something like a 2 feet overhang will be considered part of the parking space dimensions to achieve a 10 by 20. Perhaps
Okay.
that's the best way to do it.
okay, yeah, because the others have the parking blocks on the west side, at least.
They do, and that was, I'll tell you the reason why that too, because that was a grading issue. Because again, I'm not a fan of wheel stops. And I'm certainly not a fan of wheel stops with a raised curb, because then you're stepping off onto
Yeah,
an element, right? These wheel stops here, that sidewalk is flush with the paving, and that was for a grading purpose, if I recall.
okay.
So you need a stop.
Yes, sir.
Is your bollard going to be a solid concrete, or is it going to be the flexible kind, flexible foam?
I believe the details calling for it to be steel filled, right?
Okay.
With the,
Either one works,
Sign
I've just seen
down.
both.
I've never had anybody ask me that.
Government offices have a lot of these where they're put in, screwed down with 4 bolts, and then a big foam piece put, but they have a flexible.
Right,
I don't know why, but they expect people might hit them more often.
yeah. The way the detail's called is a 4-inch concrete filled steel pipe painted yellow finish.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Essentially, those are my comments, and just to reiterate, the changes that I would propose to make are changing that crosswalk to the
Right.
the high emphasis one.
Minus the rails.
Yep,
Yep.
yep, that's correct. And adding a condition for overhead lighting if there is outdoor seating. So I don't know if you want to consider putting that in so that that outdoor seating is an option in the future. I'll leave that up to you. And then
Let me ask you this, if she was to want to pave a little bit more to set a table, right, with 4, seats around it, or the 3 benches or whatever, she's not going to need to come back before like a site plan, anything of formality, right?
Good evening, Carolyn Roll. I would suggest making the decision whether or not you're going to take advantage of the outdoor seating. And if so, should the Planning Commission recommend approval, that your plans reflect that before we get to City Commission? And then you wouldn't have to come back to make that change. So if it's optional, I think you should, and you think you might do it, that you can make that amendment now and have that ready for City Commission if that's what you think you're going to do.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
You want to make that change now, it's probably minimal cost to put the lighting in while you're building the building.
So, I mean, if I need to reintroduce a new plan to certainly make the switch on the crossing, we can show something, at least gives you the flexibility, Jan, to do it, and you're built in for it, right? So, and then if you don't do it, you don't do it, so.
Yep. And then the third is to incorporate language to accommodate the parking on the site plan as you have it shown, with the 2-foot overhang on the spaces on the east side of the building.
Do you need me to provide that, or is that
No,
something being?
no,
written?
I guess I'm looking to you to make sure that you're comfortable with those conditions. Because if we make a motion, then to include those, I don't, I would like to hear if you have any objection to those now.
I don't think I
while
do. I
we're
think it's a
having-
great idea. Now, I'll certainly look at whatever gets drafted. I have no problem with
Yeah.
that.
Mr. Chair, I can go through the list again just to confirm.
Sure.
So the conditions would be execution of a proposed development agreement. Number 2, substantial conformance to exhibits, a revision of number 3 regarding 10 by 20 parking spaces to reflect that the parking spaces on the east side of the building will be considered, the 2-foot overhang will be considered part of the parking space to achieve the 10 by 20 parking space size requirement. Does that sound like the
Yes.
condition? Okay. Condition 4 is regarding the supplying of the color swatches to the light and colors provided by Venetian Square landlord, and to have those supplied by the time we get to City Commission. So we're matching that aesthetic. Number 5 is the row of shrubs proposed to be planted would extend to the western property line. And the 6th one, let me make sure I'm saying this right, you mentioned a high-intensity crosswalk. Is that?
Yeah.
So that's the additional condition. And then the other being, should future optional outdoor seating be considered, that appropriate lighting be provided for safety purposes, and that those revisions be highlighted on the plans before presentation to City Commission.
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does that sound good to you? Okay.
Okay. That's all I had. Any other discussion?
The only other item that I just kind of picked up on was curious, is there any signage associated with the crosswalk?
Not on these plans, and I
Because-
really only see it if it's related to like a roadway
Yeah.
or in a town center, if you're running across a pedestrian table or something like that,
Right,
you
'cause
maybe point to
My
it.
concern is, again, going back to that entrance, and I'm looking at some aerials and stuff, and I can kind of see where it's a split entrance, and it looks like the Venetian Square property does have some ownership of a part of that entrance. But I still feel like folks that are traveling westbound are potentially capable of coming in with a right-hand turn and heading back east toward the drive-through, at which point they would have to encounter that crosswalk. So I just feel like it would be a safety improvement to have some kind of signage there that
Wouldn't be able to get there. This is like solid. This is the
they'll
crosswalk.
come in here, turn here, they'll come around here and back through here.
Yeah,
I didn't follow you, so can I either come see what you just pointed to, or we
yeah,
can bring it
so,
back up?
so what he's saying is that westbound traffic would pass the first driveway, and
Westbound
turn-
traffic inside the
No,
development?
on 434.
On 434?
Westbound traffic on 434 passes the first driveway where the auto parts store is,
Okay.
and turns into the second driveway where the Italian restaurant is.
Okay, okay.
And then they basically make a U-turn into the parking lot, go into that frontage drive
Drive aisle,
aisle
yep.
to turn into the drive-through of the coffee shop, and thereby they would pass the pedestrian crossing.
In the main drive aisle up front?
That's correct.
Okay.
I do understand the safety concern. I think that, I would think that the high emphasis crosswalk would be enough. I know the guidance for the MUTCD signs for the pedestrian crossings. The guidance would say that it would be optional in a case like this, because of the low speed in the parking lot itself. So I don't know. There's a part of me that says whenever you put up too many warning signs, it kind of makes drivers desensitized to all of them because they just see a lot of signs, and so they start ignoring them. But your point's taken. I just feel like the high emphasis crosswalks would be adequate. It's a visual cue as you're driving on that frontage.
I understand. I think, hopefully some other future commercial developments come in here as well, and that would probably take care of it.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to be slowing down anyways to come visit Jan and get a coffee, so they won't be accelerating, right?
And then the only other question also related to signage is the drive-through the turning radiuses, are they designed to accommodate trailers and folks with boats and that?
They are, especially with the, I don't have the little clicker anymore, the stripe in between the drive-through lane and the bypass. He has a radius equal to his inner radius, if not a little bit smaller, allowing for that. If you're driving a truck, you kind of go past your turn a little bit, then you wing it, right? It is, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yep. Just related to the signage question, because I just, does the business have a monument sign on 434?
It's not part of our plans. Is that?
I mean, I hope so. I think we should, yeah. Typically, we do. And that's something we'll be having a conversation tomorrow with corporate, and I think a lot of that's going to get ironed out. So we can definitely have all of that information for the next meeting.
Okay. Terry Lynn, would that, how would that work? Because we're looking at the aesthetic review now.
A monument sign wasn't discussed,
Okay,
so there's, signage on the building. And there's a Venetian Square monument sign currently.
right. And
So-
so they could be added to
To
that
that
if
monument,
the
yeah.
landlord would allow that. But if they wanted their own separate monument sign, then they would have to come back?
Because they'd have to, that's a separate consideration.
Right, okay.
Well, if it's not there, that's fine.
Yeah.
There is, the Venetian Square has a sign we can add and I
Yeah.
mean, we're right there on the road front.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if we can put it, great. If not,
Okay,
Yeah, and
understood.
that's similarly to the other project there.
Yep.
Sign is in the Plaza's monument sign.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because typically whenever a business wants to put, or a property owner wants to put some kind of monument sign, we need to review that to make sure that it meets the height requirements, meets line of sight issues, and there aren't any obstructions. So
sure.
that's all.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Okay. All right. With that, we will close discussion and open it up to public input. Anybody wishing to speak on this item is welcome to do so at this time. Seeing and hearing none, we will close public input. And I will open it up to motion. And no, I don't think that you have to recite all of the different conditions.
Perfect. Then I would make a motion that we accept
recommend
Sector
approval?
we recommend approval with the acceptance of the conditions that Tara Lynn specified at the end of the presentation with the amendments.
I second the motion.
Is that adequate?
Yes.
Okay.
Board Member Halal.
Aye.
Board Member Hood.
Aye.
Board Member Mencken.
I've had the pleasure of using that parking lot to help teach my kids how to drive, and now I'm looking forward to the next phase of teaching them how to get through a drive-through. So, aye.
Vice Chair Ferranti.
Aye.
And Chairperson Ma.
Aye. Thank you very much. All right. Motion passes unanimously. Let's see, and we don't have anything else on the regular agenda, so at this time, we will open it up to board member reports. Let's start with Mr. Mencken.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Ms. Hood?
Nothing to report.
Okay, I'm good.
I'm good.
Nothing to report.
All right. Let's see, and lastly, we will open it up to the final public input. Seeing and hearing none, we will close the final public input and adjourn. Thank you very much.